Hello everybody.
Hello.
Welcome back to the Paws Trails webinar. Today we have our great friend,
Hudson.
PT. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Very nice to see everybody.
Same here.
It's always a pleasure to see you, Pete.
Thank you very much. Great to be here, and it's a lovely day in Pennsylvania at the moment. So, and I've been out photographing. Elk this morning because we have the elk rut on, and I've got a herd about an hour and a half away, and it's just this light, this first morning mist, just fantastic.
Great. Hope you got amazing pictures.
It's good fun.
Let's see once this travel bans and everything is lifted. I'm just going to jump over.
Yeah, really great to get out photographing. Some great animals too.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. So today you are going to talk about those 4 species that are sitting on both sides of yours.
Wolves, yes.
Yes.
The ultimate, one of the ultimate species. Special animal.
Yeah. So what do you think? Let's begin.
Let's begin the journey.
Thank you very much. Okay. Yeah. Good morning, everybody, and thank you very much for joining us in this discussion about wolves. I'm sure there are many of you who've wanted to go and see wolves and to photograph wolves. And without any question, the best place to do this is in Yellowstone National Park, which is in Wyoming and Montana in North America. And I've been fortunate for the past 12 years to be heavily associated with the Yellowstone National Park wolf team. And I've been involved with that as a research biologist, investigating the diseases of wolves and how those diseases are affecting the wolves. I've also been looking at the issues about the elk population and how the wolves interact. Because I really believe very strongly, if we can't understand the basic ecology of Yellowstone National Park, which is the foundation of the ecology of the whole of North America, how can we manage much of what we have that is remaining? So this is a very important conservation project. There is one thing about wolves that affects everybody. Everybody has an emotional response. Now, you might see this photograph and you might think, what a fascinating, gorgeous animal looking at you, and you want to go out and photograph it. Other people have deep hatred, deep fear, but everybody has a very strong emotional response. One of the things about wolves is you never really know when you're going to see them. And I remember that this was one of my early photographs taken when I was hiking in the woods in Yellowstone National Park. And my friend Mike Ebinger, tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Pete, to your left." I looked round to my left and there was this wolf just sitting in the forest, watching us through the thick forest. I brought my camera up, caught this photograph, and as I took the photograph, it just melted away. And we didn't see wolves for the rest of that day. The one thing about wolves, though, is when you do see them, you jump, you're amazed. The one thing about them is they're really, really big. Look at their paw size, almost the size of a human hand. That is a big animal. We capture, as part of our study on wolves, we capture wolves and put radio transmitters on them. And most of the photographs I'm going to show you today were taken by the Yellowstone Wolf team, taken by Doug Smith, Dan Staler, and their colleagues. And I had special permission to be able to show you these really wonderful photographs. So we capture wolves during the winter period and we put radio tags on them. And here are 2 wolves, males, that we caught from the Delta pack, fitting radios through them. They're anesthetized at the moment, so they're not just lying there, they're half asleep. But look at their weights, 53 kilograms, 116 pounds. They weigh as much as many women do, so they weigh almost the same amount as us. And they are something like 75 centimeters, which is about 32 inches at the shoulder height. And I remember well being out early one morning, trying to find these wolves, and it was still dark. And then the elk charged past us, and then the wolf pack came past us. And my mouth dropped open because they were like the size of donkeys as they come past you. These are big animals. The other thing about them is that they live in packs. And it's not unusual for the first member to be the inquisitive member. So this is a camera trap that we've set up and not surprisingly, the first thing he does is check this camera out. He looks, checks it out, smells it, sniffs it, and then along come the other members of the pack. And it is this social behavior, the fact that the wolves work together. Some are inquisitive, some are fit, some are wise, but together they form this whole pack. As you can see, there are many of them, and you can see that there are different color types. That was a gray wolf. Here comes a black wolf. They come up to these cameras and come up to anything, check it out, because they're checking out food. Watch this guy here. That is a beta animal. That animal is very low on the social hierarchy, so that animal is scared at seeing the other one, and so is pushed away. Here is the distribution of grey wolf, and they found right across Eurasia, and of course they were right the way through Europe as well, and right the way across North America originally. They have said there were 38 subspecies of wolves, but now we think of this as being more like 4 subspecies of wolves. But they have a huge distribution, and they're of least concern in conservation because they're doing pretty well. If we look at what's happening in North America, their historic range was huge. It went right across the western area, right through the Rocky Mountains. There were wolves almost everywhere. And then they were persecuted by the ranchers, the farmers, and everybody. Even the national parks persecuted them and eliminated them from the United States. So by the 1960s, there were just a few individuals caught up in Minnesota and just coming into the United States and eliminated from everywhere else. At that time, President Clinton and others decided that there was a case for reintroducing wolves back into the natural ecosystem. And here is President Clinton with his daughter Chelsea and a guy who was one of the people involved in the introduction, Mike Phillips. And they're at the location where they decided to reintroduce wolves 25 years ago into Yellowstone National Park. Today, the wolves have spread all over, have started to spread out from Yellowstone National Park, meeting those wolves that have come down from British Columbia and Alberta, such that we now have wolves in the Northern Rockies in North America. What happened was they went to Alberta. In 1995, they brought in 14 wolves. And then they brought in another 19 the next year. They caught them, they put them in crates, they carried those crates and introduced those animals into pens, kept them there between January and March, and then released them. And the idea was to form a unit. So they had 3 pens in locations, and they were there to try and produce a pack and to get together to know each other. And then they released them. And it worked pretty well. They didn't disperse a long distance. They stayed close to the pens initially. In fact, one of the females even had babies when she was at cubs, when she was in there. And that was the first 3 packs that set it up. Since then, we have followed the wolves in detail. And much of this work has been done by my good colleagues, Doug Smith, Dan Staler, Dan McNulty. They go out, they capture the wolves, and they fit radio transmitters on them. Look at the size of that wolf that Dan is fitting a radio transmitter. That is huge. What amazing animals they really are. To do this, of course, Dan and Doug use helicopters and planes They chase across the landscape, and then they dart the wolf, come down, fit them with radio transmitters, take measurements of them. They take samples of blood, which they then pass to us, and samples of feces that they pass to us, and we do the analysis of those animals. This allows us to follow the wolves. When they have a radio transmitter, and you can see this is a grey wolf carrying a radio transmitter, we're able to follow it from the air, so we can find where that animal is at any one stage. We can follow it from the land as well by sitting on high locations. We can see, and you can see here is the radio tagged individual here, passing across a mountain. We can follow their movements as they go in search of prey. This is really good because we can keep touch of the whole pack. As long as we have one or two individuals, we can find the other individuals within that pack, and we can see their movement. And once again, here's another aerial photograph taken by Doug from the helicopter or the fixed wing plane. Now, those data allow us to do the whole genealogy. We know where the pups came from. We know who they're related to. So we have a complete pedigree of the Yellowstone National Park. This is fantastic, insightful data that has allowed us to get a real insight into the behavior and biology of the wolves. Here's a diagram that one of my graduate students, Emily Armbo, produced a few years back, showing you the distribution of some of the main packs that were at that time and the years previous. This is Yellowstone National Park, this big sort of square, as it were. And this is Yellowstone Lake down here. This is one of the famous packs. This is Molly's pack. But you will notice that we have a large number of packs all distributed up in the northern part, the northern range. This is the Lamar Valley, famous 20 years ago because of the number of elk that it inhabited. And that is an open area. I'll show you some photos in a minute. But all of this is forested and thick, and there are relatively fewer wolves because there are fewer prey species down there. I just want to say that Doug and Dan McNulty have put together all our findings from several hundred papers into a book which is going to be released later this year. It's published by Chicago Press, and it's going to summarize many of the components of our work, and I think going to be a very important foundation stone in the understanding of wolves and the understanding of predators and their prey. But I suspect many of you are interested in conservation photography. You want to get out there, you want to be able to watch wolves, you want to be able to see wolves in their natural environment and take photographs of them. The best time to go without any question is in the middle of winter, and to go there in January and February when the temperatures can be as low as -40. And it doesn't matter if I speak Fahrenheit or centigrade, -40 is -40, and it is really, really cold. You can have winds coming across there, the chill factors, and you can see the challenges if you're trying to take a photograph of a black wolf against a white background. So you have a lot of difficulties in being able to follow the animals. They do come near the roads, and some of the roads are just open to people who use ski and doos, these snowmobiles, and you can see there's a group of people that have been able to see this wolf, and there's a wolf on the top left-hand corner calling. The markers are quite simply to show the people where the road is, and they've stopped. But of course, if you're on one of those, it is very, very cold and very difficult to carry your camera. You are probably best going into the Lamar Valley and spending most of your time there, and the wolves do come and do cross the road, but only occasionally. And you have to be really lucky to be able to see a wolf as close as this. Another opportunity is when there is a kill. And if there is a kill, then you might get the opportunity of being able to watch the wolves on the kill, and you watch them actually eating. Or, fortunately, if you can be there, you can watch the kill take place. but then you can have them eat it. But the rangers are very worried about wolves getting hit on the road, and it's not uncommon for visitors to hit the wolves and to kill the wolves or the other prey species, the bison, the elk. And so if there is a wolf kill near the road, they remove it quite quickly. I like it when you can take photographs of the wolves in the snow. And here are two black wolves just trotting through a snowfall. And here is a group of wolves at the eastern end of Lamar Valley, trekking across. And I just love this feeling of the snow, the deep winter, and these wolves out there chasing their prey down. Of course, you'd like pictures like this, but I'm going to be honest with you. If you go there at this time of year, in 3 days, you will see wolves. But I've been going for many, many years and work on the wolves, and very rarely have I seen wolves really this close to be able to take photographs of wolves passing through the snow. You can walk through that snow, but you're going to need snowshoes or skis. And then you've got to carry your camera and your tripod. You've got to make sure you're warm. And if you stop somewhere, ideally you want a mat or something to stand on to keep your feet warm. Now, one of the great things about Yellowstone National Park is there is a semi-organized group of wolf watchers. And that's what these people are doing. This is a photograph taken during the summer months, and you can see the line of people there. And those are people that are quite simply watching and photographing wolves. And the distance they are, I don't know, but they could easily be at a couple of miles away. For many years, this character on the left, Rick McIntyre, has run this team and been able to find the wolves. And he has shown tens of thousands of people their first wolf sighting. And this is a lovely photograph of a girl excited at looking through her telescope and going, wow, wolves. And she's traveled all the way here and been able to see them. And Rick has been one of the people that has been remarkably helpful in that respect. Rick still goes out every day, but he no longer works for the Yellowstone National Park. He's retired, and he's also writing books. So if you're interested, I would thoroughly recommend Rick's book. And he's got 2 books that I know of that have come out recently about specific wolves and their life history and their biology. They're really great. And Rick is a very generous and insightful person. One of the other ways, and one of the best ways, is if you find the wolves yourself. And I'm not sure if you can hear this noise, but those were the magpies. So if you see magpies aggregating, if you see ravens and crows coming into areas, then you're going to be able to you often find it. So one of the things we do all the time is just checking out the magpies and the ravens as they're moving about. If you see an aggregation, you know that's going to be a good place where the animals might have a kill. So moving on, and let's talk about some of those prey. Let's talk about the elk and the bison and the interactions with the wolves. Well, as I said at the beginning, it's mid-September. The elk are in full rut. They pull their harems together, and the males are out there with this really strange bugling noise that you can see from at great distance. But when you're there in January and February, what you need to look for is elk on the run, elk that are being chased by wolves. So when you see elk running, you want to stop and check to see if there's a wolf pack behind them. And it is a fabulous, fabulous sight. So the young wolves are running all over the place. They're running, they see every elk they see, they chase, and then they give up with that one. And they will often go into a stotting behavior where they're moving their legs in a way to say, I am a really fit elk. Because the wolves are trying to select the weakest individual, the easiest individual to pull down. And it is the older wolves that know the prey species, that know the prey that is the weakest one. And you can watch them. They're slower, but they just know which one it is. They will chase them. The other wolves come in, they will move in and then make the kill. And then the whole pack will turn up. Not always. I mean, not all of them, but occasionally you do see all of the packs, and the packs can be 16, 20 individuals. The Druid pack was 32, I believe. So it's quite a remarkable feature to see these wolves all coming in. Now, knowing where the elk were killed is important for us for research, because we can go back to that kill and we can take a leg bone and look at the marrow in that leg bone to see how weak that individual was and compare it with the healthy ones. So here is my good colleague, Dan Staler, involved in the Yellowstone elk capture, where they put on radios to follow the movement so we know what is actually happening to the elk population out there. These are some of the figures of abundance, and this is the wolf population, the 35 individuals we introduced, and then you see the increase in the wolf population with them going up to well over, and this is only in the northern range, 100 there, it was 160 in total, and then they've fallen down, and now they're sitting, the total population about 100, but sitting at something like 60 to 80 wolves. During this time, the number of elk in that area have declined and the bison have increased. So we have seen a major ecological change taking place, particularly in the Lamar Valley. And this is a photograph that I took when I was with Denisha there earlier this year. And this is the Lamar Valley. And if we'd been there 20 years before, then we would have seen thousands, if not 10,000 elk in this area. There wasn't an elk to be seen. These are bison herds here. There's one herd here. There's another one down there. And the whole ecology of this place has actually changed. What has happened is, yes, the wolf have killed some, but they've also moved, and they've moved into local areas. They've actually gone out of the park where we don't count them, and they've gone out there to avoid the wolves. So the presence of the wolves is changing the behavior of the elk. It's allowed the bison. 20 years ago, I never saw any bison in this area whatsoever. So the bison have now moved in, and they have a different feeding ecology as well. And in the same vein, so cougars have moved in, and cougars kill more elk than wolves. Yes, that's important. Cougar, which you very, very rarely see, actually kill more elk than wolves. Of course, seeing the bison is wonderful. And here is a high key photograph of a bison. I think this was one of the photos that we took last winter when Nisha was with me. And here are the bison again. These are the females, and this is a herd actually using the road to move from one feeding area to another because the access is very good. But these young bulls, these young cows that come with them are vulnerable to being eaten and caught. And here's a young bison. You can just see the horns there, and you can't see the feet there, but these wolves have killed and feeding on it. But it's very difficult. The other bison chase them. They try to horn them. It's very difficult for these wolves to catch these bisons. So they're in a difficult position. But I think, and I suspect over the next 5 or 10 years, we're going to see more and more bison killed by the wolves as the elk move into Paradise Valley and other areas. Some very interesting research undertaken by Dan McNulty has shown that in Yellowstone, where it's full of hot springs and geysers, the bison often move to these areas. And this is the most famous. This is Old Faithful going off against the first light, producing this big steam. It results in there being grass and vegetation available for these elk. So this is just in front. That's Old Faithful in the background, just steaming away. And these two bison are here feeding on this vegetation. When they're in this area, they're relatively safe from wolves, but they graze it and graze it. And then they have to move through the thick snow to get to another feeding area. And when they do, that's when packs like Molly's packs are spectacular at catching them from behind and killing them. So you can see wolves waiting for these bison to move out of the hot spring areas. Of course, there are other carnivores, because Yellowstone is one of the highest densities of ungulates in the world. And it has this fantastic diversity with elk, with the bison, with the pronghorns, with a number of other deer species there. And of course, grizzly bears, black bears, and other animals feed off those. One of the big questions was what's going to happen with the grizzly bears once the wolves come back. And one of the issues has been to look at it, because we've seen a very good recovery of the grizzly bears over the past 20, 30 years. And this is a young bear, which in a standoff with a wolf, you can see he's got a radio collar on there over a dead bison. And really, what happens is grizzlies don't kill bison much. They will kill them during the bison rut. The big grizzlies will kill them. But during much of the year, they scavenge them. And what is not uncommon is for bison to fall through the ice into the river, into the Yellowstone River. And then when the bears come out of hibernation, so they come and find and feed on the dead and rotting bison that you find in the river. And here's 4 grizzly bears looking at eating a carcass that's actually under the water, with a wolf coming round to check it out to try and get in there. Basically, the rule is bears will push off less than 5 wolves from a kill. This is another one of Doug's aerial photographs. And here's the grizzly on the right. And you can see 2 black wolves and a grey wolf there. But in such a situation, even though the wolves have probably killed this elk, I can't imagine the grizzly did, the grizzly might be able to push it off. And you can see the grizzly is both radio collared as well as this grey wolf here as well. Now, here's an interaction over a carcass between a black bear and her cubs. And of course, these are young cubs. She's just come out of hibernation. She's brought off 3 cubs, and she's interacting with these wolves over this carcass. Wolves will kill bear cubs, both grizzlies and black bears. But of course, they're fighting over this high protein resource. She needs to get her energy back so she can feed those cubs. And so you see these sort of interactions taking place. Another species, and I have to say one of my favorites, is the coyote. The coyote is the closest living relative of the grey wolf, and they look like wolves, but of course they are much, much smaller. And they are both scavengers, and they feed on the small mammals. And this was a photograph I took last year, I think it was, when I was with Nisha in Yellowstone National Park, and this was another one. And what the coyote's doing is trying to sense the presence of a rodent underneath the vegetation so they can jump on them and catch them. They call to each other over long distances and yapping and amazing songs that these coyotes have. So they are, if you can't find wolves that day and you can photograph coyotes, that is a very enjoyable thing to do. But the wolves have had a very big impact on the coyotes. This is a photograph I took about 20 years ago, and this is a black wolf trying to catch a coyote. So you can see the different size, and this is a kill that the wolves have made, and then the coyotes have moved away. Sorry, the wolves have moved away, and the coyote has come in to try and catch some last pickings, as has the magpie in the bottom right-hand corner. The wolves killed and regularly kill the coyotes. They hate coyotes like nothing. And even though they're full, they don't want to eat anymore. They will hunt down and kill the coyotes. So we have seen a big change in the behavior of the coyotes since taking place. Now, one thing you must have noticed is that we see differences in the coat color of wolves. And of course, one of the big questions is why does that happen? And what is actually taking place? And it's one of the questions that we're studying at the moment, and it's one of the questions that I find personally intriguing. So there are two types of wolves. There's the grey wolf, which is the one you think about, but there's also these black wolves. And if you remember your school time genetics, there is a dominant gene, and the dominant genes are only found in the black wolf. The ones that aren't dominant are found in the grey wolves. So a double K recessive represents this individual, while this represents this individual. Interestingly, we never find a double dominant. We only find the heterozygote, indicating that there's something about these genes that causes early mortality in the black wolves. Now, in genetics, when a gene does more than one thing, we call it Pliotropy. And in this instance, while the gene changes coat color, it also has an effect on its immunity, and particularly the immunity in the lungs. And because of that, we've postulated that it's a way of defense against infections such as lung infections, such as canine distemper. Now, since we introduced these wolves into Yellowstone, we have seen a very big increase in the proportion of the black. So here is a pack sitting down, socializing, and you can see 3 of these wolves are grey, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 are black. The proportion of black wolves in the population has been increasing. We've seen 4 canine distemper events. We had one in 2019, which this figure doesn't show, but when it hits, the population crashes. And the population crashes because it kills off almost all of the young pups. So here's a photograph Doug has taken from the air of a series of wolves sitting on a stone. And there's another one running off there. And we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 black wolves and 1 grey wolf, I think, in that photograph. Maybe there's another one there behind it. But the whole point is that when the canine distemper comes, all the grey wolves die, and a big proportion of the black wolves. And that has changed the structure of the whole population. And we think we might just have evidence, like today, that this is because of canine distemper. But we're doing the analysis, we're running the samples, but it's a very exciting time in Yellowstone biology at the moment. One of the things you will really enjoy being there is the pack life. These are social animals and they interact. They come together, they interact, they're smelling each other's anal glands all the time, and you'll see differences in the behavior of every individual. So we have 3, 4, 5, is that 6, 7? No, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, something like 10 or 12 individuals in this. And the first thing you'll notice is the socializing. See these 2 interacting, these 2 approaching. Now, this is a classic case. This is a dominant wolf. See, you could look at it, they look at their faces, they look at their tails. The tail is up. That tells me this is dominant. The tail is down, it's submissive. It's not at the bottom of the pile. If it was, that tail would be tucked under its legs. So this is a much less dominant individual than this one. And you can tell by the way the neck is down here, the neck is up here. This is an interaction where this is the dominant and this is the submissive one. Here is another interaction taking place, 2 grey wolves, both with collars, but here we have 3 black wolves, and this is the dominant individual. His tail is sticking right up, and this individual is so submissive, he's actually lying on his back, opening his, giving both his throat and his stomach so to give complete appeasement to the dominant and to the other semi-dominant one here. So this is the dominant, then this one, then this one. Fascinating to watch. You might, or in fact, it is wonderful when you hear howls wolving. I was going to say, when you hear wolves howling, it really makes your spine tickle. It is quite a fantastic thing to do. You cannot, in the Yellowstone National Park, answer these calls yourself. You are not allowed to howl or interact with their social behavior. And we don't really know why the wolves do this. We don't really know everything. One of the most interesting things is that when they do start howling as a pack, as we see here, then the wolves come together. You will see wolves come from 500 meters away, rush towards it to howl together. And it's very much a social signal. And I think in those situations, it is saying to their neighbors, we're here, we're powerful, listen to our voices, we're strong. When the wolves are by themselves, I think they're often just trying to say, hey guys, where are you? I'm looking for you. But we don't think it's used, for example, when they find prey. So if 3 wolves found an elk and had it cornered, they don't howl to say, hey guys, come and help us catch this elk. They just don't use that at that time of interaction. But it is wonderful to watch, wonderful to photograph. Now, this is this has come from one of my own studies, working with my close colleague Paul Cross. We were very interested in the energetics of wolves, and in particular how the disease mange altered them. So Paul got hold of a heat-seeking camera and took photographs of wolves that had both mange and not mange, and he got this fantastic photograph of wolves howling, and you can just see the heat source there around the face and around the eyes. If you look on this individual's legs, there's a touch of mange where it's losing its heat, and the blue means that it's completely cold. So these animals are losing no heat through their coat unless they have the mange present. And we did estimates and calculations and showed that the mange resulted in them losing twice as much energy as when they didn't have mange. But that's a more detailed story. I'm going to stop there and say thank you very much for listening. I would encourage you to go to Yellowstone National Park, and I think you will enjoy every second. You will become enamored by these remarkable animals. And I think you will find it a great experience to go to what we call the Serengeti of North America. Thank you very much for listening.
Oh, it was, I was just recalling the Yellowstone days, though we haven't got to see them in that close range. It was such a fabulous experience to see. I think in at least 4 to 5 days, we have spotted wolves, right?
Oh, yes. We saw them quite close when they came up onto that edge where they'd made a kill just up there. I think that was the Lamar pack. We were watching them, but we were still having to watch them through telescopes.
Yes.
If you have a telescope or you can borrow one, I strongly recommend you take one. And of course, people can use their iPhones to photograph them. I was shooting with a 1200 millimeter, I had a 600 with a 2x converter on my Sony A9. Absolutely top-notch setup, isn't it, Hermes? And I couldn't, and I haven't shown any of those photographs today. We were just too far away.
Yeah, I was using a 400 and without even converter. So it was a fabulous experience, especially when it was snowing and all this were on top of that ridge. It looks like you're watching some movie in real life.
Yes, there are some superb. So Bob Landis.
2021 we'll be able to travel.
Yes. I'll be back there in January.
Okay.
Come on, Hermie. Come on,
Yeah. Thank you, Pete. As always, you rock.
Well, they really are superb animals, aren't they? And there are some animals, like some big carnivores like lions, you can get relatively close to in the Serengeti. There are other animals that you really can't get close to, like snow leopards, fantastic animals. Some you never see, like amber leopards. But wolves, you can see them in Yellowstone.
Yeah.
Good photographs, and photographs that's going to win you Wildlife Photographer of the Year. Almost impossible. It is possible, but it's difficult.
It's difficult.
It is the experience of just being in as I said, the Serengeti of North America.
But I think one of my friends over here in Prince George, he mentioned they have spotted black wolves on roadside near to their place.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
Because, of course, just on the island and on the coastal region, there are coastal wolves there. I've never seen a coastal wolf that's black. But I suppose it could occur.
I don't know whether it comes under which category. This was in Prince George, and he mentioned that they do spot them quite often.
But then you have to see them from the road usually, and you're traveling through the northern British Columbia, and it's just solid wood on every side, and then they remove some of the vegetation, so you're just hoping to see a wolf come out and run across, and you do. It does occur. But there's no guarantee to seeing it.
That's true. I mean, this was not on any of their wolf expedition or anything like that. They were traveling to one place to another, and they often have this wildlife encounters.
Yeah. Good. Are there any questions today?
I have a question. So how does, is there a conservation issue, especially with hunting, or how is this handled in Yellowstone?
So we're research biologists, and we're trying to understand the wolf. And Yellowstone is one area where we can have a natural ecosystem. Now, when the wolf population rose, and it was about 160 individuals, Yellowstone became a source of wolves, and the wolves moved out and spread into the nearby countryside. And this caused much concern to the ranchers. And there were some dreadful interactions. And there are people and some people who are really proud to be able to kill a wolf. So they do everything they possibly can to encourage the wolves to come out of the park so they can shoot them and claim they're attacking their livestock. There are justifiable reasons that people are should be shooting wolves when they're affecting their livelihood, but this balance is really difficult one to work on. And there's some great video discussions about this, and some ranchers being very reasonable, realize that they can keep their ranch alongside the wolves, and there's going to be need for managing those wolf populations. Obviously not in Yellowstone. We will never interfere with the natural ecosystem in Yellowstone. If something foreign came in, so if COVID, or equivalent of COVID, invaded the bison population, we would do something about it. The only thing they have been doing is they have been interfering with the bison population to try and stop the bison from moving up into Paradise Valley, because when the bison move in there, they allegedly carry the brucellosis, which can kill the cattle. But the evidence now is that it's actually the elk that is carrying the brucellosis. So you can see there's huge conflicts between the parks. So I think I'm really impressed by the park and the way they manage it. They have these very strict rules. So, for example, they would never let us do an experiment where we would change the number of wolves or change the number. They would never allow that. We would never ask them because we know what the answer would be. But we would like to do, experiments, but we can't do those. So it is meant to be just a natural system that we can monitor, that we can record and work out to help wildlife. And there's no doubt that the Yellowstone wolf team have done a remarkable job in revealing to the whole world the biology of the wolves, the interaction with the elk. One thing that has been misrepresented is this idea that the wolves have changed rivers. And there is a misguided YouTube by George Monbiot, which says because of the presence of wolves, there are now more beavers, the rivers have changed, the wildlife has come back, and this is all because of wolves. This is not true. The science does not show this. Beavers were introduced in the late 80s, the early 90s, at the same time as the wolves. He claims that badger numbers have increased. Badger numbers have remained stable. But the wolves have, and there's terrible confounding variables because we've seen a lot of warming. We've gone from those periods of very thick snow to periods of relatively snow, which is not very deep at all. We've seen changes in the water flow because of this climate change. So there's a whole consequence of interacting factors that we're trying to tease apart. And I'm working with Tim Coulson, a very close colleague in Oxford at the moment, to try and see what the wolves have really done to the system and what they haven't done to the system. But this is very complex science because there are multiple factors interacting: climate change, changes in the wolf introductions, the different species that have been, sheep were introduced there, etc., bighorn sheep. So there are multiple things going on there. We're trying to understand it. But if we can't understand Yellowstone, we can't understand North America. Big question, but and there are wolves down in New Mexico and places like that that have been reintroduced. And once again, there is terrible conflict between ranchers and it's one hand, it's got to kill every wolf, and on the other hand, it's got to hug every wolf. I don't think they will ever eliminate wolves. The wolves were eliminated back in the 1920s through heavy shooting, but they also introduced diseases like mange, and they used poisons. And thankfully, those poisons are not allowed to be used. And I don't think you would ever be able to eliminate the wolves from the North American countryside again without large numbers of people reverting to what is currently illegal practice. So thankfully, the wolves are here. But I think we need to manage them within the countryside. And, I work closely with colleagues in Italy, and the wolves have come back there, and they're spreading through the Alps. They've come up through the Apennines, come into the Alps. The wolves have come from Eastern Europe. They're into France, into Germany. There's a wolf population in Spain. The wolf population is coming back, and we're going to see much discussion and conflict over that in the next 20 years. So much discussion to be had, that's for sure.
Is there any human attacks reported in Yellowstone by wolves?
I don't think so in Yellowstone. There have been wolf attacks reported. Some of those, so some of them, for example, in Alaska. I think one of the most recent ones was a lady who went for a run in Alaska and she got caught, and I think she was killed by wolves. Of course, it's when people survive that we know that they were attacked by wolves because they can report it. There have been a few wolf attacks, but I can't recall any in Yellowstone. Grizzly attacks are not uncommon. I mean, one or two every few years, but wolf attacks in Yellowstone, I can't recall a single one. They are fantastic animals, and I think if you were really damaged and they thought they could get you, they might have a go, but you would have to be, you'd have to have a broken leg and things like this, and you're more likely to be caught by a grizzly before the wolves get you. I mean, obviously, if you're in the Sundarbans or somewhere where there's frequent killing by tigers on fishermen, this is much more common occurrence. And we do know in parts of the world, and one of those is indeed India, that people can live alongside wolves, can keep their sheep and their goats alongside wolves, manage them and do certain things. And so there is conflict in places, and I think we will need to manage wolf populations. But I think it's a natural part of our ecosystem here in North America and across Eurasia.
And is there any other subspecies of these wolves in the world?
So at the moment, we say there are 4 subspecies, but they're essentially all the grey wolf, of course. And I was fortunate enough to see the Tibetan wolf when I was in the Himalayas earlier this year. Interestingly, saw a grey one and a black one. So that was, and I was going, whoa, maybe the genetics works here as well. So fascinating, yes. But some of the wolves, and if you've seen wolves in India, they look totally different from these guys. You know, they're much thinner, much smaller. These guys are huge. You know, do not underestimate their size. You see a wolf that's nearly a meter tall, bound past you, your mouth goes wide open. Wow.
And they are monogamous, right?
So there isn't an easy answer to that. So there is an alpha who runs the pack. That can be female, that can be male. It's often a female, and she will breed. And sometimes she will let her sister or somebody else breed. So you might get 2 or 3 females breeding. Usually it's just one, it's just her. And the rest of the pack then collects the food and brings it back and feeds the cubs. And sometimes it's only one male who has done that mating. But the females, particularly as they grow up, they need to move away from the pack where their father was the dominant male. And so they will see a male, and males get kicked out from other places, and they'll form a new pack, a young male and a female. And when it's just the 2 of them, that's a really difficult time for them. They need to have their first litter, and then the litter needs to form into a pack, and then they've got this cooperation. So that sort of breaking apart, reforming, and sometimes they will let new males and new females and come back into the pack as well. And you never quite know, are they going to kill this wolf when it comes in, or are they going to accept this wolf when it comes in? So it's a very tense period once they leave the security of their home pack and move off somewhere else, either with another singleton, or they try to enter another pack to mate as well. It can be, they can be killed. And in fact, the major cause of mortality of wolves in Yellowstone is being killed by other wolves.
Okay.
And they will often, one pack will invade your home range. So mollies, which is one of the biggest ones, will come up north. And they will try and kill the animal, and they will also try to kill the other wolves. And once you have a dominance over that other wolf pack, you can keep the numbers of those neighbors down, and then you can take their resources. So it really is death and pillage in the wolf system. Of course, that's high in Yellowstone because the density was high.
We have a question from Ellie. What is the male-female ratio in the pack? And does the pack exiles any if its members, or just a myth?
Really good question. Roughly speaking, it is 50-50 across the park. There tend to be the young males are really important to the pack, because when they're 1, 2, 3 years old, they're the ones who do much of the hunting. Up until about 4 years old, they're out there and they're just full of energy. They're like big puppies with energy. They're just not necessarily thinking, but they're the running machines. They're out there. So they keep those males often with them for as long as they can, just to do it. So overall, I would say 50-50, but then they're not getting matings. So they have to find matings elsewhere. They have to leave. As I said, a male will go off to the neighboring pack and try and entice a female to come with him, and then they will go off and try and set up. And sometimes they're successful and sometimes they're not, because you've got to catch food. The mother one needs to stay and protect the cubs from other wolves and other animals, but also that means that the male is just doing all of the hunting. So when you go to somewhere like Ellesmere Island, where there are white wolves, these big white wolves, there's pack sizes are relatively small, rarely more than 6. Here, as I said, we have up to more than 30 with the Druid pack. Sometimes, the Molly's pack is often in the 20s.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah, that's it when it comes to questions.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, PT, once again. We have a lot of requests that we should do PT session more often.
Oh, that was.
That's true. That's more of our sessions are usually focused on photography part, but when you get to do that scene, it's completely different. It's more of there is science and there is photography, so that's definitely an amazing combination.
Yes.
So I'm just looking over and I'm seeing there's some lots of nice people there. People like Sanjay saying hello, Yashwant saying thank you, sir. That's really great. Cynthia, thank you very much, Cynthia. I'm a great admirer of Cynthia's work. One of my very good friends, Jeff Scott Simpson, has been on, and he's very well known because he's got some of the best photographs of Iberian lynx. Just fantastic, and you should check out his photographs at some stage.
Yeah, definitely.
And again, on that note, the next session is going to be by Cynthia on macro photography from her part of the world.
Fantastic. Looking forward to that.
Yeah.
Maybe we can ask Jeff to do one on links as well.
Yes, that's possible. Or I can do some of the talk for him and use his. I'll have a chat. I'll ring him up this afternoon.
That's great.
Sure.
Okay.
Thank you, PT, once again. It was fabulous. And whenever you come into the scene, there is, you feel that energy, you feel that passion, and PT being the backbone of Paws Trails in the science and the conservation, and a great buddy. So on that note,
my friend left me some apple cake to eat when I finished. Especially homemade. Very good.
That's right. So
Okay.
let's hope this COVID situation will get over soon, and we'll be able to catch up either in Mara or in Yellowstone or in some part of the world.
Yes. Mara, I'm missing Africa.
Let's hope things are going to be sorted soon.
Okay, thank you guys.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. So that was Peter Hudson, and as always, he's like a energy bomb. When he comes into the scene, he just share all his knowledge. There is no limit when it comes to talking on things or keeping things as no boundaries, and he just spread awareness.
We
And
need more people like that
yes.
who shares their knowledge.
Yeah. So it was being on his talk definitely is an experience, and being with everybody, whoever have joined us so far, was a great experience. So we appreciate everybody's support, and let's catch up again on Saturday with Cynthia going to talk about
The
macro.
Small lives.
Yes. Once again, she too have a science background, PhD holder. So let's catch up with more stories. We have seen a lot of big animals, a lot of cats, a lot of birds from different part of the world. And now this is going to be from Argentina, and it's going to be of all small world elements. Species. Okay.
Yeah.
On
See
that,
you everybody
see you all
on Saturday.
Saturday, same time.
Till then, take care.